Hello, and welcome back to video games. So, yesterday I played through Mega Man X purely on the idea that it was just a game that was kind of due for a replay, right? And this is kind of the same thing. There's like a slate of games that I tend to replay at least once a year or so. And this is one of those. Skylian says, Mario, correct. This is just going to be a very... Oh, wow. I have never, ever done that before. I did the Lakitu skip. What I was trying to explain is that I am in no way a speedrunner, so don't expect that to be like anything like this to be anything like that. And then, all right, well, maybe I am. Maybe I am. Maybe this is a trick. Maybe this is a late April Fool's joke, and actually I am going to play the best goddamn Super Mario 64 of my life. Time for Red Sonic, exactly. Hello, Bridget. Now, as is tradition, between the time that I rented Mario 64... See, professional speedrunning strats right there. Between the time that I rented Mario 64 and the time that I actually got my own copy, I got the player's guide. And so from the player's guide, I learned how to, get this star, because I'd always wondered about that while I had it rented. So, when I finally got my own copy, this was the first star I ever got, behind Jane Chomp's Gate. Yeah, I have never done the Lakitu skip before. I go for it every time, but I've never gotten it. New Matt One says, recovering from my trip to Evo. Hey, congrats on getting to go there. I need to not try to look at the chat while I'm in the middle of a jump, don't I? That's another important speedrunning strat for you guys. Wow, Mario 64 is so good. I bet Donkey Kong 64 will be even better. I mean, there was no reason to doubt it, right? I made yet another attempt, I should say, to actually get anywhere in DK64 a few months ago. I played with all kinds of quality of life tricks and the tag anywhere mod. And I made it further legit than I ever have before, but I still fell off after a while. You actually gain better hand-eye coordination by reading chat while performing difficult jumps. Well, I mean, people do the Mario 64 blindfold challenges, right? So, an easier version of that would be playing the entire game while looking at chat. Unknown Rum saying that they had the curiosity to ground pound the poles around the red coin star. Yeah, in retrospect, it does seem pretty obvious. I think the thing is, I probably didn't even know that I could ground pound the poles, that wouldn't have been intuitive. Okay, it is actually very intuitive, but what I mean is, I had to learn so much all at the same time about how 3D games were played, and this game had to teach, all of it. So, I was pretty overwhelmed. Mason Lotta, thank you so much for the super chat. They say, you plan on making a video on Metroid Prime 4. Yeah, I promised, over a year ago now. When Metroid Prime 4 was first revealed, I said that when it comes out, my first playthrough of it will be, a playthrough where I make a video about it. And, that's just, I wanted to do something a little bit different because, typically I like to have a game come out, and I try to make my videos, evergreen, I guess. Or at least as evergreen as they possibly can be. That's not entirely possible. I've made videos about games that came out decades before, and now my opinion is completely different about them. But in as much as I can. But Prime 4, think I'll do something a little bit different. And partly that's because I don't tend to want to replay Metroid Prime games very much. Because they're so... Not that they're long games, but I guess they're long games for me. Most of my favorite games can be finished inside of like 10 hours. Bridget says, Idaho Crew has been playing it on DK Vine's Twitch, referring to DK64, I assume. And they have very mixed opinions depending on what they're doing. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Rummy, glad you managed to catch a live stream. Chris says, dumb question, do you think you'll cover Metroid X Fusion given it's gotten as much hype as AM2R? Perhaps it has not, because it hasn't been on my radar at all. I think this is the first time hearing about it. Let's see, have we gotten enough stars out of Bob-omb Battlefield yet? I guess we'll do this one. Jenny says, now that I think about it, didn't Mario 64 DS basically become Donkey Kong 64 with all the character switching? It's funny, right? In the mid-90s, all the internet wanted to do was figure out how to play as Luigi in this game. There were so many completely bullshit guides on how to unlock him. There was like a whole cottage industry founded purely on attention, because there wasn't really any money to be made on the internet at the time. God, I can only imagine how much worse it would be now. But there were so many trolls who just wanted to waste all of your time by making you jump through a gauntlet to unlock Luigi, who of course is not in this game. And then the DS version came out, and one of its selling points is that you actually could play as Luigi. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And then I played the DS version, and I was like, okay, this isn't... After all that hype, after, 8 years of wanting to play as Luigi, it's like, okay. It was kind of anticlimactic, I suppose. I did finally finish the DS version, I want to say about a year ago. And I did it because it's very easy to mod your 3DS. And one thing you can do if you do mod it is make it so... Yep, made it. Make it so you can actually use the circle pad in original DS games. So there's a mod for Mario 64 DS when you play it on the 3DS that actually gives you full analog controls. And I still don't like it nearly as much as the original, but boy, that helps. This is one of those situations where I really miss the the PC decomp version of this game, because it gives you the option to not have to exit courses when you get a star. So it's always kind of funny how you have to play the secret slide, get to the finish in under 21 seconds to get the secret star, and then immediately do it again to get the not secret star. And also, don't jump here. A guy I follow had a friend in school who ate glue and wanted Mario 65 so badly. That's funny. Usually the hypothetical sequel to Mario 64 that we imagined, people would call it either like Mario 64 2 or much more popularly, Super Mario 128. Shaunimus says, are you aware of the GTA 3 and Vice City Dreamcast ports? Yeah, I am. I keep meaning to try those, and I just haven't yet. MewMat1 says, my entire thing with Mario 64 is like, as soon as I unlock the upstairs, I just don't want to play it. Well, fortunately, if you can backwards long jump well enough, then you don't have to. Let's see, what do I want to do here? Guess I'll actually play the star. Rico Lee says they grew up with the DS version and first played this on 3D All-Stars, and they completely get why people prefer this one now. I mean, I'm a little surprised to see somebody say that. I feel like most of the time, and not always, but most of the time, people tend to, like, have more affinity for whichever version they played first or the one they grew up with. I guess if you played the DS version first, this one would feel like it has, you know, lots of missing content comparatively. But I don't know, I was kind of disappointed when I played through Mario 64 DS last year because, like, there wasn't a lot of additional content, and most of what was there, not all of it, some of it was pretty good, but most of what was there was just kind of, I don't know, perfunctory, kind of underwhelming. And then there were also a lot of cases where it's like, they've just reworked the star that was super, you know, straightforward that Mario could get by himself in this game, but now you have to jump through a couple of additional hoops to play it as a different character, to, like, get it as a different character. But, you know, your mileage may vary. Can't get the bomb yet. I think the owl starts showing up on this mission, is that right? Cup of Tea says, I love how dreamlike the levels are in Mario 64, a neat consequence of the levels being one of the last things finished in development. Yeah, I don't think it was at all intentional exactly. I think it mostly just comes down to this being such an incredibly early 3D game. Like, this game has such a distinct look, but the look is almost entirely based on, you know, pre-built texture packs, because that's what they had to work with. Danny says the multiplayer was very addicting. I was so disappointed by that aspect of it, because Mario 64 DS must have had a really, really quick development. I think they rushed it together pretty quickly to make the DS launch, because the DS launch itself was pretty underwhelming and was okay. Shoot into the wild blue. Now we're definitely gonna get it. And there's the owl. But at E3 2004, when 64DS was first revealed, it actually had a different name. It was called Super Mario 64x4. And what they were promoting is that you would be able to play through the entire game with up to 4 players in, like, a co-op mode. And that sounded incredible. And then, of course, the game came out and it didn't. It just had the, like, star catching mode in, like, the courtyard or something. Oh, the mini games in 64DS were great, though. Yeah. Am I going to be able to shoot this? Is this going to work? Is this a good idea? That is a little low. That's a little high. Hey, that's one dead plumber. Rico Lee says, I love both and still have a soft spot for 64DS, but at least understand where 64DS's criticism comes from now. Yeah, it's like 64DS, I think, is only really, like, bad if you have, like, I guess the more familiar you are with this version, and in particular how this version moves and controls and functions and everything, the harder it's going to be to adjust to the DS version, because it is so different. And, you know, maybe, I'm sure for some people that also goes in the opposite direction, that this is hard to pick up because they're so used to the DS version. But taken on its own merits, I don't think it's like terrible or anything. Definitely looks nice, especially the DS didn't end up getting a whole lot of 3D games. I know that was a big concern when the DS first came out because, that's red coins. Let's not do that. The Game Boy Advance was criticized for having like way too many 16-bit ports, especially when it comes to Mario, because basically all of Mario All Stars and Yoshi's Island ended up getting ported one by one to the GBA. So, when the DS came out, there was lots of talk of like, oh no, Nintendo's just going to do that again. They're just going to like port every N64 game to the DS. But I think most later N64 games would have been a lot for the DS to handle. I think Mario 64's simplicity is one reason it was able to make the transition. And also, of course, just the fact that the DS lacked any analog input was always going to be a detriment for it. But I say all that because I saw somebody say, are there other N64 games you wish had gotten the 3D treatment? Because, yeah, that was a nice thing about, especially, the first year of the 3DS being out, is that we got Star Fox 64 DS, Star Fox 64 3D. God, too many acronyms. And we got Ocarina of Time, then later we got Majora's Mask. It would have been very unlikely given the situation with Microsoft at that time anyway, but obviously it would have been nice to get like some rare games on the 3DS. Banjo-Kazooie 3D. Let's see. Oh, somebody's asking, was I actually disappointed by Contra? Because I just had that on screen at the time. I don't remember ever actually playing Contra as a kid. I definitely played it on an emulator for the first time, probably. I don't think it would have disappointed me as much if I'd played it back then. It would have been way too hard for me, that's for sure. But I think if I could have played it in co-op with like some of my friends, especially I was talking about this guy yesterday. One of my friends when I was a kid was like quite a few years older than me, and he'd grown up with the NES. So if I'd played Contra with him, I'd have probably really liked it. But no, the main NES games that I think of when I think of games where it's like, I heard so many great things about them, the internet hyped them up so much as like, this was the peak of the genre, you had to be there, and then I kept getting them, and then it's like, okay, yeah, you had to be there. I remember reading a review of Excitebike one time when it came out on the e-reader for the GBA, and it was just lambasting praise on it, how there had never been anything a technical achievement on the level of Excitebike. So I actually got that e-reader version, and I was like, what? This is it? And of course, now I go back and I play Excitebike, and I'm better able to, like, I guess, acclimate to the idea that this is a game from 1983. And kind of see it through that lens. But that sort of perspective shifting only comes with, like, intent and experience, I think. Especially for things you didn't experience at the time. I guess Mario 64 is itself a pretty good example of that at this point. I remember when I'll get back to the castle and show you guys this. when 3D All Stars came out, there were a lot of people who were really struggling with some of the controls in this game, and I had to pull up the game myself and experiment with it to even understand what they were talking about. Because what they were saying is like, if you stop holding the control stick and then move it in the opposite direction, then Mario kind of like jogs in a circle there. You don't have, full. I guess if you're like on a small platform or something, that's difficult because you might run off the side of it. But if you don't like let it go to neutral, if you just crank it back, then Mario will pivot. And also, if you come to a complete stop, then you can turn on a dime. So, and that's something that was just so inbuilt to me that I knew so well because I've been playing this game since the literal day that it came out in North America. that would never, I guess, occur to me. But I think you also see that a lot with like the early 3D Sonic games, where it's very easy to, if you've been playing those games since they were relatively new at least, or for at least for a long time, it's very easy to pick them up and just, without even realizing you're doing it, completely ignore all of the problems with them. Because you don't remember, because you understand how to avoid that stuff. I remember one time I was playing Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast on a stream, and somebody just said, "God, this entire game is muscle memory for you." And yeah, it is. Sometimes when I cover Sonic video, when I like make Sonic videos, I'll have my wife actually play it because and like get that footage, because I need footage of somebody who's not just like what it's like for a new player to experience it, I guess. And I also just need to be able to like remind myself of that. It is weird that NSO doesn't include manuals. I think, isn't there a like somewhere where you can like go to a QR code and then you can get them? I know that's how the NES and SNES Classic did it. And that's better than nothing. If you saw at the very end right there, I always like doing this. This as a kid, just one of those dumb things you do. At the very end, before the fade out, Mario hits the death barrier. Like you can see him actually land. Anyway, guess I should do Bowser. Yeah, exactly. You understand the jankiness of the game and just know how to compensate. And if you know how to compensate well enough, then you don't even feel the jankiness anymore. The Bowser levels are some of my favorites, and I kind of wish there were more of them. I think because they let you put Mario's movement abilities to use in a more traditional, like, get to the end of the level type environment. And I don't think the game would have been nearly as influential or as, revolutionary as it was if that's what it had actually been. If it had been like Mario 3D Land or 3D World, but in 1996. I think they made the right call, but I don't know. I just really enjoy the Bowser levels. Yeah, the Wii U Virtual Console did have digital versions of the manuals, but I don't know. I suppose that was slower internet speed. I don't know. 2012 wasn't that bad. Thank you for the compliment, Matthew Smart. Need to make some more one of these days, don't I? Well, like I said earlier, if nothing else, I'll be doing Metroid Prime 4 before the end of the year. I feel like I have a little bit of lag. Let me see if I can fix that. That'll usually do it. My TV has this bug where every time you turn it on, it forgets that it's in game mode. And you have to go in and turn game mode off and then back on. Yeah, Bowser's laugh is the boo laugh, but slowed way down. Skylian says, if you could go back in time and tell Rare to make DK64 a linear 3D platformer instead of a collectathon, would you? So the funny thing about that is, if I did, it wouldn't do any good really, because Rare intended to make DK64 a linear 3D platformer instead of a collectathon. It's just they ran into like lots of development problems with that version. And ultimately, DK64, I think it was in maybe mid to late 1998. I don't know. The dev info's out there. But DK64 basically got a new project lead. There we go. So obviously, yeah, I would have preferred if Rare had stuck with like the more linear stage design. I think primarily, even if you like DK64, it's very like it's always going to be compared to Banjo-Kazooie and Super Mario 64 and other collectathon platformers. I think it would have stood out a lot more, particularly on the N64, if it had been more of a traditional, 2D platformer in 3D, basically. But at least we finally got a great 3D Donkey Kong game. Just had to wait 26 years. Righteous Bison Enjoyer says, I remember... Oh, nice TF2 reference. I remember first watching your videos on Metroid in 2016 when I was 8. It's what convinced me to try the games, and now I'm a Metroid fan. Ooh, if you were 8 in 2016, that means you are exactly 20 years younger than me. Because I was 8 when this game came out in 1996. But yeah, that's cool. I feel like Metroid would have been a lot for me at 8 years old. Actually, no, I know it was, because that's about when I played Super Metroid for the first time. And just did not get it at all. So, props to you. Which star am I on? Bully the Bullies, okay. I feel like this is an inefficient way to get over here. Oh no! We're gonna have 2 dead plumbers if I'm not careful. And I'm not careful, so we're gonna have 2 dead plumbers. Let's see... Well, no, DK64 wasn't going to be a 2D platformer in 3D. Well, okay, I'm not sure what you're saying there. Basically, DK64 was, at one point in development, going to be more like Crash Bandicoot. It was always going to be 3D, but it was going to have, individual levels. And where you get to the end of a course to get to the goal, I guess. That's a skip worth doing. I can't remember who it was, but a couple months ago I think it was a stream of somebody playing this for the first time, and they were getting so tilted at this part. You've just got to be very good or very lucky. And right now, I'm being neither. It gets easier as you go. It's funny how the big bullies are really no more challenging than the little ones. Hey, to be fair, Skylian, New Super Mario Bros. Wii was was just a pretty hard game in general. I loved that about it. I always felt like the fact that they had the Super Guide enabled them to kind of like take the gloves off. Because my main criticism of New Super Mario Bros. On the DS was that it was just way too easy. Let's see, we're on red hot log rolling, aren't we? Yep. Isn't that I must go into the volcano typically. Because there's a shell in a box that starts spawning over there. And that's normally how I get to the log. And it's fine. What video game is this? Hello, hat-wearing gamer. Oh, you know, I think on a stream a while back, I was talking about this time when I played Banjo-Tooie on NSO, and there was somebody from Australia. And so the connection was so bad that all we could do was play the quiz, and it ran at like 2 frames per second. It was terrible. That was Hat-Wearing Gamer. He was the one I was playing with. I will never forget that, for better or worse. Astronomus says the same old DK only in 3D quote makes a lot more sense when you realize that's how it was originally supposed to be. Well, yeah, true, but the promotional tape would have been would have been written when the game was pretty close to the end of development. They knew what they were doing. Welcome to the stream, Mason Morgan. They say, I love your videos and it's my first time to the stream. Did you continue your Paper Mario retrospectives with the 1,000-Year Door? And if so, where can I find them? Well, actually, the next game I have to do for that series is still freaking 5 years later. I still got to do Superstar Saga. But no, I haven't done that. That said, any video I ever do is just gonna be on the YouTube channel. I'm not gonna. They're not gonna invite me to Nebula. I don't think. Do you have to be invited to Nebula? I don't even know. Yeah, 2 FPS. The crazy. Oh shit. May have 3 dead plumbers coming up. But I'll do my best. The funny thing about Banjo-Tooie's frame rate, and I guess the performance of like any N64 game, is that not being a PC gamer, or not just N64 games, but anything from the 5th gen, I didn't have anything to compare it to, right? So like, I remember the reviews of Banjo-Tooie, you know, really taking it to task. Because the performance is so bad, there's so much slowdown in it. And they were right, there was. But when I was a kid playing it, I literally didn't see it. I didn't know what they were talking about. And it's just very funny because, you know, Tooie came out on NSO last year. And like most N64 games, if it had slowdown on real hardware, you know, NSO sort of takes care of that. But after I beat it, because I beat Tooie start to finish, I 100%ed it for the first time ever on that NSO version. Hey, it's Mips. But after doing that and getting very used to it, I put in my original cartridge on original hardware. It was like, God, how did I put up with this? But yeah, I think until like mid release Dreamcast games like Sonic Adventure 2, Super Magnetic Neo, until then, I just don't think I'd ever played a 3D game that ran at 60 FPS before. So yeah, nothing to compare it to. And also in a lot of games like Star Fox 64, which ran very well most of the time, but when it would slow down, it would actually slow down. Like games nowadays, typically they'll drop frames and keep running at the same speed, which makes more sense, but I still don't think it's as cool. Because when you'd get slowed down in Star Fox 64, it'd be like when there's lots of things on screen and there's big explosions and you fired a bomb. So that just seemed like a cinematic flourish to me, if anything. Shaded Zeal says, I can't remember the last time I actually did the log rolling star the intended way. Oh. Well, that's not the one I was going for. Yeah, I guess I'm going to stick with the path I'm on. Oh, I still kind of like when games like slow down during big explosive moments. Obviously, you don't want it to be happening literally all the time like it does in Banjo Tooie, but to this day, I still think that's kind of cool. Oh, I hate when the camera gets stuck up there. Saw CJ saying, "How did I put up with this?" That's what I say about using the DualShock 4 compared to the DualSense. That's funny because I actually, I'm fine. I'm fine. I still think the DualSense is better than the DualShock 1, 2, and 3. And I really don't like the DualShock 3. Those analog triggers on it are just very cheap feeling, and never got used to them. But the DualShock 4 is probably like in terms of the way it feels, it's my favorite PlayStation controller. I like the DualSense for its features. I think it has some really cool, the rumble and the way the analog triggers work. I wish more games would make use of them, but hey, at least we have Astrobot. But just in terms of the way it feels, I prefer the DualShock 4. That said, my primary issue with all of Sony's controllers is that I just never liked that analog stick placement. I prefer the N64 controller to the DualShock. That said, I do think the original PS1 controller without the analog is really, really good. It's better than I thought it would be. That's true. I need to play more Returnal. I think that game came out when I was like really, really, really into something else. I don't remember what it was. When did it come out? If I know exactly when it came out, I might be able to tell you. But saw somebody saying, because I just glanced for a second, the N64 that they think the N64 controller is one of the most comfy. Yeah, I still really like it. Its main problem is durability. Like when it's fresh and it's good, then yeah, I still really love it. And it's the only time Nintendo ever made like a standard controller that had 6 face buttons. And as a Sega kid, I will always wish that had become standard. April 2021. Oh, okay, this is kind of funny. Spring 2021 would have been right about the time that I was getting really into the original PlayStation, oddly enough. I kind of had a... Like, that season, that was a lot of what I did. I beat most of Symphony of the Night for the first time, got really into that. Was playing, I replayed X4 and X5. I got a lot of PlayStation games around that time, too. They're still, or at least at that time, they were still pretty dang cheap for the most part. I just wanted to show that off. M says, what is your favorite controller for 2D games? That would be, everybody act really surprised, the Sega Saturn controller. Not particularly close, but at the same time, there's lots and lots of controllers that are really good for 2D games. For 3D games, it's funny. I love the GameCube controller. Always love the GameCube controller. But if a game isn't designed for it, then it tends to be pretty awkward because of the button placement especially. And, you know, the fact that it only has one bumper button, like the Z button. Still can't believe that Nintendo put a second... On the NSO GameCube controller, they put a second bumper button on it, but it's super small. Very weird. In terms of 3D games, I don't know. I feel like I've for a long time I've said that the current, and that's very important, the current Xbox controller is my favorite of the modern systems. The original Xbox One controller was much worse, even though it looks very similar, but and it's hard to explain why. I think they've just kind of refined it over time. That said, the Pro Controller 2 is really, really, really good. I think if they'd given analog triggers to this controller, it might... Oh, whoops. Turned it on. It might eclipse this one for me, but that's just... The lack of analog triggers is going to make it a tough sell for some games. Skylian says, have you tried the new Saturn controller repros by Retrobit? Yeah, I have got at least one of them. At least 3 of them, now that I think about it. So yeah, I've tried them. The D-pad on my Bluetooth one broke really fast, though. And I had to, like, bug them for a replacement. And then they sent it to me, and I had to open it myself. And, like, I love the work, right? I don't mind that sort of thing, personally. But I've heard they changed that with later models, like they improved it. But other than that, yeah, they're real good. Amy says, that reminds me, Rare Replay turned 10 yesterday. Did it really? I know, I can't remember if Rare Replay came out on Rare's actual 30th anniversary. I know it had been announced by this point. But I don't remember it coming out until a little bit later, but I could be totally wrong on that. No, you are right. It did come out 10 years ago. That's wild. I remember that because I remembered suddenly very specifically what was going on for me 10 years ago. And why it seems like it came out a little later. I got an Xbox One just for Rare Replay, but I didn't get it until November, I want to say? Somewhere around there. And then it was my only Xbox One game for the longest time. Skylian says, I would have loved the Pro Controller too if it wasn't held together with a glue. Oh yeah, I've never like been into controller modding myself, but I've watched a lot of YouTube videos where people have, really had trouble opening it up. That sucks. Especially because if I remember right, the original Pro Controller for the Switch 1, that is. I guess the original Pro Controller was for the Wii, come to think of it. But the Switch 1 Pro Controller was pretty easy to mod. CJ says the OG GameCube controller was a little worse compared to the PS1 DualShock because of the GameCube controller having one analog stick and the C-stick. I mean, like I said, I prefer anything but Sony's stick placement myself. And also, I never played any twin stick shooters on the GameCube that I can remember. I guess maybe that's why, though. But I didn't really get that into FPS as a genre until I started gaming on PC. Which is funny, like now, honestly, I don't play FPS games with a mouse and keyboard that much. Mostly because my computer is upstairs, and like when I'm like my computer's upstairs in the office. And, you know, when I'm relaxing, you know, I want to be sitting here. But I have not tried the new N64 controller from 8-Bit 2. The thing is, there's lots and lots of, you know, alternate versions of the N64 and Dreamcast controllers, for that matter. And I've never really been interested in either one of them, just because, especially with the N64, I'm very okay with the OG. So I never really felt a need to, like, try to replace it. BBB3 says, if you could bring back one Kong for a new DK game, who would it be? Well, I don't know. Aside from the ones that were in, I guess you're saying just counting the ones that were in like the retro games in Bonanza. I don't know. I feel like Lanky is the most unique, right? Lanky would kind of make the most sense in terms of like standing out from the others. But in terms of playable characters that we haven't had in a long time, I've always been just a little bit more impartial to Chunky for whatever reason. Ashanima says, Sega shouldn't have removed the C and Z buttons from the Dreamcast pad. Agreed. Yeah, it's crazy how the Dreamcast actually could... Do I want to get this star? Yeah, I guess so. It's crazy how the Dreamcast actually could register C and Z buttons. It just didn't have them. But like, if you plug in an official fight stick, then the input just magically becomes... Wow, Slush is playing Donkey Kong Bonanza. Who could have possibly seen that coming? Slush is the founder and webmaster of the fan site DK Vine, by the way. So of course he's playing Donkey Kong Bonanza. Send him your well wishes, by the way. He's recovering from COVID. Bacon says, I like the posters in the background. What's your favorite piece of merch or memorabilia that you own? A couple years ago, I think the most I've ever spent on a single video game. But after all these years, I finally imported the Sonic Generations Collector's Edition, which only came out in Europe and Japan, I think. Yeah, I could be wrong about it coming out in Japan, but anyway, that's up there. But yeah, those Pokemon posters are actually puzzles that my wife put together. That was one of her lockdown hobbies. I see somebody asked about the goth critique. You know, I still have the wig that I wore in the Shadow the Hedgehog episode. I might have to bring that back sometime. Do you not get the merry-go-round ghosts if you're not on that actual star? I don't know. I feel like I'm running out of like really, really easy stars to get now. Not Candy Kong. That wouldn't be it. Also, something that I never realized about the Dreamcast controller until a couple years ago, and that you can see it on the Xbox controllers to this day. they just... The reason the button layout is the way it is because they just removed the C and Z buttons. I think you guys can see this. Am I holding this right? Yeah, that works. They, like, it should be A, B, C, X, Y, Z, and then they just remove those buttons. And that's why the Xbox controller layout is the way it is. Do not ask me why Nintendo's layout works like that. Obviously, B and A matches the NES, but why Y and X are reversed, I don't know. Oh, the goth critique absolutely would have become a part of Channel Awesome, because I guess the thing is, the idea is that he's supposed to be roughly sort of the opposite of me. And one thing I never wanted to do in my videos was storylines. So the goth critique, if he actually made videos, would be probably about 90% storylines. Raygun is here! You made it! Amy says, I actually had a dream last night there was a Donkey Kong party game and its roster was on the same level of Nitro Fueleds. Like every major DK character was playable in it. That'd be cool. As far as Donkey Kong spin-offs go, I'm still very much holding out hope that Donkey Kong Racing might actually become real one day. That'd still be my first choice, although... See, I was about to say, when it comes to spin-offs, they probably don't want to step on Mario's shoes, but, like, what spin-off could they realistically give Donkey Kong that Mario's not already doing? And don't say another Donkey Kongo, we do not want that. Ooh, when I do Shadow Generations in 2050, I should absolutely bring back the goth critique. That's a good idea. I'll be in my 60s, but I'll still be able to pull it off. Useless knowledge I learned recently about this level. You see that sort of cloudy effect that's over the water there? That only exists until you raise the sunken ship. And once you do that, even if you come back to this star specifically, you never get it again. Speaking of which, I guess I should go do that. So SA2 is not the first game to have a character nonsensically say, here we go at the end of the level. No, that was a pretty common thing, I guess. Nintendo's X button is on the Y-axis, their Y. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Nintendo's button layout might not make any sense, but they were first to the diamond-shaped button layout, so I guess everybody else actually has it wrong. I know I always see memes about people having trouble with, the button layouts and how every major console's controller has the X button in a different place. And I get it, but I was always such an Omni gamer as a kid that it's always been pretty easy for me to switch. That said, I don't know that I ever would have remembered the PlayStation controller layout if it hadn't been for Parappa the Rapper. Ocelot, what up with you? The Genesis 6 button was the first major controller I know of with the 6-button layout. But I mean, it was imitating Street Fighter. It was imitating Street Fighter's layout. And Mortal Kombat, I guess. Because 6-button arcade fighters were very popular. and very common. I don't like the 6-button Genesis controller as much as a 3-button, though. I think just because it's so much smaller. But still, either way, the Saturn still trounces both Genesis controller styles. Officially, yeah, the PlayStation X button is cross. That is what they call it. Oh, I don't know. Skyline says hearing you were never an elitist about Sega is incredible to me. As a kid, everyone was an asshole about their preferred console. I mean, I got the closest I ever came would have been during the Dreamcast years. Just because I felt like I knew this was Sega's last chance to make it, and I felt like that console was just so often unfairly scrutinized and overlooked. And I was a kid at the time. I shouldn't have been that personally invested in it, but boy was I. The Saturn had its 3D controller that was packaged with Nights into Dreams. As far as round controllers go, that's probably what you're thinking of. I really like the Saturn 3D controller, though. It sort of to me, I think it sort of has that same thing going as the GameCube controller, where it might look weird, but trust me, bro. Cup of Tea says, since the FPS genre dethroned platformers as the default genre in gaming, do you think there will be another genre that will come along to be default? I would argue that there's not really much of a default genre these days. Calling FPS the quote-unquote default makes sense from a late 2000s perspective, maybe. But even then, But, aside from Valve, basically, I was never that big into FPSs anyway, so maybe that's why it feels that way to me. McLovin asks, have you ever played Oddworld Abe's Odyssey? Yeah, quite a bit. One of my cousins had that when we were kids. I feel like that's one of those games where basically if I made myself sit down and play it and really stick with it, I'd really get a lot out of it. But if I just try to play it casually, then I fall off, and then when I come back, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. That's one of those games where it's like, if I dedicated myself to making a video about it, that would be really cool. Open world, yeah, you're probably right about that. Let's see, I guess I should go pound the pillars. Only need one more star for the next Bowser. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't think Battle Royale games are the default genre, but boy, publishers sure would like them to be. Speaking of which, I saw a couple hours ago that they're adding the Power Rangers to Fortnite. So that's very exciting. And the trailer could not have been done any better. They actually filmed this big live action section in what looks like it might be it looks like they might have actually gone and filmed at Vasquez Rocks, which is it's most famously where Kirk fought the Gorn in Star Trek, but it was also where a lot of scenes for Power Rangers were filmed, including the putty fight in the first episode. But yeah, I haven't played the Battle Royale mode in Fortnite in quite a while now. I mostly play the Fortnite Festival mode. Oh, that was dumb. That doesn't count as a dead plumber though, because when you die in those in the Switch worlds, you don't lose a life. Just as a point of order. Ooh, Amy says, thoughts on the possibility of a Donkey Kong movie. Ooh, it's more than a possibility. It's happening. That is happening. And I had a good feeling about it ever since the Mario movie. Because the Mario movie, despite being called the Super Mario Brothers movie, spends so much of its runtime like establishing and focusing on Donkey Kong. And I always thought that was done with intent, because they knew, like, a Mario movie sells itself, but this is a chance to sort of reintroduce a new audience, or introduce a new audience, to Donkey Kong. So that was like an early sign that DK was going to become, that in the theme park, that DK was going to become a bigger deal again, basically. So, obviously, gonna go see it. Really looking forward to it. Hope it's great. MaxiWolf88 says, do you get tilted to the towers? That was way before my time playing Fortnite. I understand the reference, but I have never been to Tilted Towers. Jay says, you've probably been asked this far too much already. Less than you'd think. They say, I am curious, have you played Bonanza yet? Oh yeah, I played lots and lots of Bonanza. Let's see here. Oh, there's my fringe code. Like that matters. Anyway, yeah, 45 hours or more. I'm getting close to 100%ing it. I've got, I want to say 3 or 4 more layers left to do. Been, going back and doing them in order. If you want my top line thoughts on Bonanza, just what I said on Blue Sky about it after I finished it was, I think it might be my favorite game of the 2020s so far. It's that and Sonic Superstars, right? And it hasn't really had long enough to set. Because I'm really, really looking forward to playing through Bonanza again, actually. Because my initial playthrough of it, I rushed because I was terrified of spoilers. And I did get spoiled on a lot anyway. As that was absolutely unavoidable. But I wanted to get spoiled on as little as possible, so I rushed through it. But I still, like I said, I absolutely loved it. I think I'm going to love it even more on a replay. Cup of Tea says, I was there when the towers were tilted. The jokes don't lie. About half the lobby died there. That's funny. I assume that the original map is still playable in that like Fortnite OG thing they do. Which is funny because I remember the commercials for that. I saw an ad for that back in, I think, January when it launched. And it was like trying really, really, really hard to evoke nostalgia for 2017. And as somebody in their 30s, that's really, really, really hilarious to me. We're gonna have a dead plumber now. Gonna delay it as much as possible. There we go. 3 dead plumbers, I think, unless I've lost count. Spirited Ensemble says, I'm lucky I haven't been spoiled on DK Bonanza yet. Yeah, I don't know how you've avoided it. Wait until I get a Switch 2, whenever that is. Yeah, by the way, if you guys can do me a favor, I will not spoil Donkey Kong Bonanza during this chat. I feel like the game is way too new for that. So, if y'all can avoid that too. Oh, another person is talking about Metroid, Super Metroid X Fusion. You're the second person to ask about it, so I guess it just came out. But no, I don't know anything about it. Perhaps it would be a good stream game, hint, hint. Oh, no. I know 2017 was almost 10 years ago. It's just, I don't know, you'd have to see the trailer. It's so obviously trying to evoke not just nostalgia, but I guess like childhood nostalgia back in the good old days. Although, to be fair at this point, even 2024 feels like forever ago to me now that we're in 2025. 2025 has already been just an interminably long year. But time flies when you're having fun. And see somebody talking about like spoiler policy, like how long should you have to wait? I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends on your audience more than anything. Like in this case, I know there's likely to be lots of people here who are excited about Bonanza, but haven't played it, both because they haven't gotten around to it yet, or because the Switch 2 is so new and they haven't been able to get one yet. So, you know, whereas in other situations, I might say, okay, no, it's fine. It'd be fine to go ahead and talk about it. But because of the circumstances, I feel like you need to give more time on Bonanza. And like, if I make a video for it next, then that's something I'm going to want to say like at the like toward the start of the video. Like, okay, like this should be obvious, but this video is going to spoil the whole game. So don't watch it if you haven't played it yet. That's good for viewer retention, right? See people talking about how they're experiencing time. I don't know. 2025, really, especially the first 6 months of 2025, just seemed like they went on forever. Like, I don't know. Looking back to like February, that feels like it was about 5 to 7 years ago right now. Oh, my wife is home. Well, I guess that's a good place to start. We'll have the Bowser level unlocked for next time. Or a good place to stop, rather. We're not starting. We've been going for an hour and 8 minutes. Wow. It's been a couple years and 6 months, exactly. There is a ton of... No, I know there is nostalgia for Fortnite. And what you can do to sort of understand that, I'm not saying there shouldn't be. I'm not saying it's weird that there is. I'm saying that it's hard for me personally to imagine being nostalgic for 2017 in that way. And yet, even as I say that, I'm like, no, at this point, I am pretty nostalgic for 2017. First year of the Switch 1, Breath of the Wild, Sonic Mania. Not nostalgic for Fortnite, though, and it's not childhood nostalgia, so it's kind of a different thing. But, I don't know. Anyway, the cool trick you can do, just substitute years when you actually were a kid, and then it'll make sense. Like in my case, it's weird if it seems odd to think that that people in 2025 are nostalgic in that way for 2017. I have to remember that in 2005, I was extremely nostalgic for N64 games that I played in 1997. Like, Diddy Kong Racing very much seemed like the good old days next to, you know, God of War and Shadow the Hedgehog and Shadow of the Colossus. Lots of shadowy games that year, huh? Anyway. All right, everybody. drink water, eat right. I don't know. Get enough sleep. That's an important thing. She went upstairs, so she can't do this part. But thank you for joining me for the stream. Until next time, you keep geeking. I'll keep critiquing. Gotta look around.